Unicef and the World Health Organization are calling on authorities to prioritize children's safety as schools prepare to reopen. The organizations report that 43% of schools around the world lack access to water and soap, and that's already in 2019. Now, this is a challenge as schools attempt to reopen during the COVID-19 outbreak when hand washing is so crucial. Let's discuss this further now with Unicef spokesperson James Elder. James, a very good morning and thanks so much for your time. Just an expansion on these observations and what's been found when it comes to schools around the world. I mean, we know our problems in South Africa. We know for how long we've been dealing with them. Just share with us what we have in common and where with the rest of the world.
Well, just that, as you mentioned there in the lead, that so many schools around the world, and again, particularly in Eastern and Southern Africa, across Sub-Saharan Africa, are lacking that most basic thing again, which is, hand washing facilities, toilets in schools. We've spoken before about how governments and mums and dads have done such an incredible job, and they have. The evidence speaks to that over the last 10, 15 years of getting kids into school, and now we're seeking to boost that quality. But sometimes those most basic things have been in people's blind side, and allowing boys and girls to wash their hands, making sure separate toilets are there for girls. We know that keeping a girl in school is the best investment almost any community or government can make, and yet those numbers are not good. I think that UNICEF's hope, and that's what we're investing in now, our time and our money, is that COVID has reminded everyone, the private sector, who are so key in this part of the world, governments, donors, that hand-washing facilities are a basic prerequisite in any school at any time, particularly with this pandemic. So that's something we're working and spending overtime in, because it doesn't have to be fancy right now, as you say, as we seek to get kids back into school.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It doesn't have to be fancy, but according to this report, we have over 800 million children. That's 800 million, 818 to be precise, who lack basic hand-washing facilities at their schools. And we have to ask, how is it allowed to get to this extent? What is the problem? Is it a matter of not being able to get a truck with water? Is it infrastructure? Is it that they're so far out we can't reach them? And if they are, why are they even in school there? Why can't we bring them closer? James, where are we just not getting this right?
Honestly, I would say it comes down to budgeting, well, firstly, as you say, is awareness of it. Maybe a lot of people have no idea that we're close to 1 billion kids without that most basic thing to access in schools. But once we realise that, and again through COVID, I mean, we've seen children, kids are 10, 11 years old here where I am in Kenya. I've seen them in Senegal, in South Africa, inventing things, a really small bucket and a bike pedal tap, or a bucket that, you pull a lever that uses such little amount of water, but with a tiny bit of soap can clean those hands. So we don't need big infrastructure right now. We need to start step by step, and that becomes about awareness and then willingness. There is always fun somehow when you understand the criticality of this. Private sector in this part of the world is a huge player and can lead, and governments, of course, with difficult budgets, more so now than ever with COVID. But again, that prioritisation to that generation who will lead and who are not just right in practice, right in principle. They have such an economic power if they are well educated, which means also safe in schools, with sanitation. You're going to get back a multi-rand dollar return in the years to come.
Well, James, I mean, here again, it brings us to the balancing of when it comes to keeping everyone safe during a pandemic like COVID-19, keeping kids at home. Are they any safer? The conditions can't be much better at home as well. So how do you balance this with, sort of the bigger picture and then kids and where they are, and are they safer where they are?
Yeah, it's a great question. And UNICEF right now would say no. We would say the safest place for them is in schools. And there's a couple of things to that. One is exactly as you're alluding to in terms of, their ability to catch the pandemic because they're in communities. Let's be honest, a lot of places are opening up, yeah? Businesses are open, travel are starting to open, economies are opening. And we understand why. Countries in this part of the world, I think UNICEF believes, have done an outstanding job against incredible odds in terms of trying to balance these things and not have economies closed that we know will harm many more people. But they're starting to open. So kids are playing in communities. Kids are exposed to adults. So there's that. There's also the fact that we know children are not super spreaders. That evidence needs to be shared. Everyone was very scared of this pandemic, but at the end of the day, children aren't super spreaders. Let's not punish kids. So they need to be in schools. They can be in schools. We have to do things, of course, to keep any teachers, of course, who have any pre-existing conditions. We should keep them safe. There will be outbreaks, yeah, but they will still be secondary to the negative impacts of keeping kids out of school. And that leads me to those things we know: pregnancies, nutrition. We've seen these. We have evidence on this. These are the things that are hitting kids much harder right now than the threat of COVID.
I suppose all we can hope is that governments have realized that this COVID-19, this pandemic, has actually exposed the extent to which the inability to provide has gone in some parts of the world, and they actually are going to get off their bottoms and do something about it. Thanks very much, James Elder there.